been listening in this evening to that interview. I want to bring them in now. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's now a principal at Shakti Strategies. Melanie Paradis is the former communications director to Aaron O'Toole. She's now the president of Texture Communications. Kathleen Monk is the former director of communications to the late Jack Layton. She's now the principal owner of Monk & Associates, and Marika Walsh is a senior political reporter for the Globe and Mail. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks again for that patience. Melanie, I'll start with you because you helped manage a campaign that was very much kind of in the crosshairs of a lot of these allegations of foreign interference. Did the government make the right decision today? Did they take too long?
Yes, they made the right decision, but they absolutely took too long. And that interview was startling, frankly, that anyone would argue that 1 week is an appropriate amount of time here. The fact is the government has known about this for 2 years. They may say that they have not read this report, that they weren't briefed. It's completely ludicrous to me that that would be the case. If it is the case, several people need to be fired, clearly. There are a number of allied countries who have removed diplomats from China before and have faced similar consequences to the ones that the minister is concerned about and wanted to review. It would not have taken an entire week to pull together a memo to let the minister know what those consequences might be and what other countries have experienced when they've expelled a Chinese diplomat. It's ludicrous. The other thing that I'm really concerned about is Minister Mendocino today at a press conference acknowledged that there are more MPs, that he won't name who they are, who were also had their families followed, threatened, just looked into by this Chinese diplomat in question. And we don't know who they are. My real question is, do they know who they are? Has the government briefed those other MPs on the threats that were made to their families over the past 2 years? It's completely outrageous, and this is exactly why we need a public inquiry, and we need to call one right away.
Well, Sabrina, two points on that. Michael Chong told me this weekend that, yes, that CSIS intelligence from 2021 specifically named him, but more generally said other MPs were targeted. When Minister Mendocino, as Melanie pointed out, was asked today, he said that's classified, but he did say that the CSIS annual report shows that a grouping of MPs did receive, quote-unquote, defensive briefings. That's also what Michael Chong received. He said it was just very general, that there were no specifics attached, thus why, when he got the call from the Globe and Mail, he was surprised to learn that he was a target.
Yeah, I think, going back for a moment just to talk about whether or not this was too long or if it was the right response. I think obviously it was the right response, Vassy. And I think when we talk about like the precedent of Canada expelling diplomats or expelling foreign representatives, it's not like we have a long history with this, right? It has been pretty few and far between that we've done this. And so I think reflecting on what the minister said earlier, on what Mr. Oliphant had just said, I think it does make sense that Canada did this with a bit of care. We are a middle power. How we respond is a little bit different than a country like the United States, for example. When we look at the report that you've mentioned with CSIS, I think it's obviously concerning, and I think as I've said before, this is going well beyond the political ranks. This is clearly an issue that is threatening our institutions, and more so it's going to start ruining Canadians' trust in our institutions and our democratic principles. And so I think it's important that we start to act a little bit more decisively with information that's forthcoming. But I think it's very clear that the government does have this, have the interests of Canadians at heart in being able to start to act on this.
A couple of things on that, Kathleen. I think that part of the reason that there's a lot of kind of discussion about how long it took or how long it didn't take is because of actually what Sabrina says. They don't do this. The last time they kicked out diplomats were Russian diplomats associated with the poisoning of somebody, I think back in 2018. So nothing since the Ukraine war, nothing associated with China. If I had more time with Mr. Oliphant, I was thinking to myself, well, are there any other diplomats implicated in this type of behavior? Because if so, what are you prepared to do there? Or do you need more time for that too? I mean, I think I get why they're asking the questions. I do understand there's big things to consider with China, but this was kind of black and white as of last Monday.
Yeah, and I don't think that we should, yes, the government needs to do their due diligence, but it doesn't need to take a week. The Liberals seem to do crisis management in slow motion. And taking 7 days to expel this diplomat should have been done in a much quicker fashion. And I have to reflect on the fact, what would we do if the Globe and Mail didn't even do this reporting, and Steve Chase and Robert Fife didn't even get this news out there in the first place? We wouldn't even know about this, and the government wouldn't have acted at all. And I think that's a challenge. So I do think that the government's not going to get any credit for kicking out the diplomat today, because they really should have done it, last week as soon as possible.
Marika, I mean, the minister does have a point that China will retaliate, certainly, and we've seen how they retaliate in the past. They've already released, a statement that says, should the Canadian, this was on May 4th when the ambassador was summoned, should the Canadian side continue to make provocations, China will play along every step of the way until the very end. That's a statement from the Embassy of China.
Yeah, and what Michael Chong was asked about that today on Parliament Hill in the scrums that followed the expulsion, what he said is, when you're talking about putting Canadian institutions and democratic values at risk, it can't be something that the government, his position was, could sort of bow down on, could back away on because of a risk of retaliation. He said that given the growth and the sort of increasing power and sort of bullishness of authoritarian states, it's important for democratic countries to stand their ground on these sort of principal values. And I think when you look at all parties on the opposition side, from the NDP to the Conservatives and the Bloc, all speaking really with one voice on this issue, it shows how sort of wrong-footed the government is compared to what the MPs in the House of Commons expected from the government. And the message today was that they've done the very least that they should be doing, because they at the same time voted against a motion in the House that would have made the government do many more things to combat foreign interference today. So they had the expulsion, but there's other things that they still voted against today.
And didn't everybody, I think all the other parties,
Exactly.
to be fair, it included an agency, foreign agent registry, which they're looking at right now, a public inquiry, closing down the police stations. So everybody but the Liberals voted in favor of it?
That's what it looks like from the vote. So most Liberals at least voted against it, and the opposition parties all voted for it. And we know in a few weeks the Prime Minister will have to make a decision on the public inquiry, because Governor General David Johnston is going to make some advice on that on May 23rd. Right. But it's, again, to Kathleen's point of why it's taking this much time. The government has had this information for so long, and it took a week after it was made public, not a week when it first learned about it 2 years ago.
Okay.